the most important thing that you would like to see people take away from today's webinar? And why don't we start with Mr. Rosenthal?
Sure. I think my key takeaway is either in negotiating your policy at renewal with your broker and your carrier, or when a loss is imminent or has just happened, the key takeaway is to get the insurance policy and read it. I mean, we've all said it a bunch of times. All these terms, some of them arcane, some of them hundreds of years old, that have hundreds of years of jurisprudence as to what they mean and don't mean. It's important to understand them. It's important to adjust and deal with the loss in a manner that maximizes the insurance recovery. It's an asset of the business. You paid premium for them. In the event of a claim, you ought to be able to collect. And those elements are all important in doing that.
Ed McKenna.
I guess my key takeaway would be to make sure you've got that team established. You want to make sure that when something occurs, you want to be ready to flip the switch and have those key people to be available both internally and externally to be able to contact them, again, like I mentioned earlier, on a Saturday morning or Sunday evening, to be able to make sure that your team is available and ready, and they may not be available at that moment, but at least you've got them on your phone, that you've got them on your speed dial. You can make sure that you can contact and access those individuals, that if you need them, they're available, and making sure that that's been established. I think that's a very key item within the loss world that we live in, that things happen, and they generally happen at inopportune times. So you want to make sure that you've pre-established and pre-certified your people, and going through, an example, truthfully, would be best to kind of stress test even your policy and so forth too, but establishing the team and making sure that you have those, the contractors and so forth in place, that when something happens, you're ready to go. So,
Bob Glasser.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the key takeaway is remember that insurance policies are contracts, and they have many clauses and a lot of language and terms, and it's very important to understand the language that's in your policy to make sure it responds to when you do have a catastrophic situation, and that usually does require a degree of professional analysis, whether it be by your attorney or your forensic accountants. And having the right detailed documentation once you have a claim is critical, because the forensic accountants represent the insurance company. If you can't support it, if you don't have the documentation, it goes in the not supported column, and it becomes very frustrating and difficult. And then the last thing would be, don't lose sight of the fact that an insurance claim is cooperative and adversarial at the same time. In the beginning, extremely cooperative. Everyone's trying to communicate, trying to work together to get the information and to make sure it's a smooth claim process. However, as the claim goes forward and there's differences of opinion, it does get adversarial. So when you are in a settlement meeting and you have 10, 12 items on the list, and if you come to number 4 and you both disagree on it, don't let negotiations fall apart. Put it aside. Go on to number 5, number 6. As you get more and more agreement on other issues, it's okay to agree to disagree and then come back to it, because now when you've gone through items 6 through 9 or 10 and people are shaking their head up and down, yes, we agree, so it's much easier than to go back to the items that you agreed to disagree and compromise, as I mentioned, I think is the key to the success of a business interruption claim. So I think it's understanding the contract, the language, and then compromise and working through the claim towards settlement.